everyone, Christina here. Welcome to day 2 of the holiday card series for 2017. I'm using 3 different stamp sets from Simon Says Stamp for today's card. I'm using the Peace on Earth stamp set with all these really great greetings in it. I'm going to be using that one that's really tall. And then I'm also using the Lots of Stars and Big Perfect Shapes. Starting out by scoring 4 card bases. This is a very simple card, so I'm going to be creating the same design 4 times. I'm using some 110-pound Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, as well as some 100-pound Neenah Desert Storm Environmental cardstock. So I've scored that at 5.5 to create top folding cards. And then now I've taken the large triangle stamp from the Big Perfect Shapes stamp set, and I'm stamping that in some Simon Says Stamp Jellybean ink. I'm stamping this triangle centered near the bottom of the card, and I'm going to stamp it with my MISTI tool so that I can mount the stamp once on the MISTI door, and then I can just slide in a new card base every time I want to stamp a new card. So this is a real time saver, especially if you have a lot of cards to make. I usually make a lot of different kind of one-off cards around the holidays. So most of the people on my list, every single person gets a different card. However, sometimes it's a great idea to have 1 or 2 really simple designs and just recreate multiples of that same design. And having a MISTI tool on hand to do that is a really great option. So I've stamped all of the bottom triangles for my modern Christmas tree. Now I've put that triangle stamp on this transparency grid paper, and I've just lined it up so that the top of the triangle is right on that vertical line. And then I can slide the stamp and transparency sheet around, get it positioned just right, close the MISTI door, peel off that transparency sheet, and then I can stamp a new color. So by using that transparency sheet and the grid on it to help line up the stamp, I can really position that stamp perfectly before I go into all the stamping. So I'm stamping in some Audrey Blue ink, and my Audrey Blue ink pad is getting a little bit on the dry side. I accidentally left it open without the lid on for a little bit, and so it's a little bit dry, but I just double stamp and that fills in all of the gaps in the stamping. So I did that on both colors of cardstock for the card bases, and I made sure to do 2 stampings so I got a really solid triangle. So then I'm going to move on to the 3rd triangle, and I've moved that up, and I'm using the Hot Mama color from Simon Says Stamp. This is a really nice purple. It's kind of like a really warm reddish violet, and I thought it would go perfect with these other 2 colors. So I'm going to stamp this on the white cardstock bases and also onto the Desert Storm or the craft colored cardstock bases. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick out a star for the top of my tree. I'm going to have to pick out a star from this Lots of Stars stamp set. And I decided to go with the column of stars that are smaller, and it's the 2nd one from the top. So the 2nd largest in the smaller column of stars. And I position that, and then I'm going to come in with some Duckling ink. This is a softer yellow. It's not quite such a stark gold as the Sunshine ink from Simon. I thought this more muted color would work best with the color scheme. So I stamped the star twice just because it was a small image and I wanted to make sure it was nice and solid. And I did that for all 4 card bases until all of them were complete. So my idea behind this kind of mod tree is that I would then stamp the large greeting over the entire tree. So I used that transparency grid to help get my stamp on the MISTI just perfect. And then now I'm using some Versafine Onyx Black ink. This is a really fine detailed black ink. It's perfect for intricate text like this. And I'm stamping right over the top. So if you wanted to, you could actually, like for these white card bases, I would definitely use the black. But if you wanted to switch to some white embossing for the craft colored card base, you definitely could. You would just want to make sure to let that Christmas tree image dry for a long time. These inks really soak into the paper, and while dry to the touch, they do retain some moisture. So it does cause a problem for heat embossing powder unless you let it dry completely. So I noticed as I was folding down these tree cards that the trees weren't entirely centered on the card front, and it was really bothering me. So I decided to cut off the back of the card so I can save that cardstock for another card, and then trim down these images so that they are actually 3 3/4 wide by 5 inches tall. And I'm going to put them on other card bases. I'm just going to adhere them onto the other card bases. So I'm using some Tombow Extreme adhesive, just adding some lines of adhesive around the outer edges and a couple in the center, and then putting that straight on the card front. And I decided to switch things up and have the white stamped image on top of a white base and also on top of a craft base. So technically these 4 cards are all different, being that they're on different cardstocks with different card bases, but they're all essentially the same. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Hope this gave you a great idea for your holiday cards. I will see you on Monday for day 3 of the holiday card series.